And Krug's is here, and we do want to get his thoughts. And, we talked about Bryce Young when you were on last week, Larry, and I didn't think he played very well against the 49ers on Monday Night Football a week ago at this time. But then he goes out and he makes those fourth down throws to Coker and to Ted McMillan and beats the Rams yesterday. And then you look at Shador. To me, he's just a backup quarterback in the NFL but he is Deion's son, so he's got to get the attention. Being a fifth round pick and number 144 overall, people treat him like he's the first overall pick in the draft. And we were there at the combine, Greg, and the way he handles himself and strutting in. And yesterday he comes in with the hoodie with his own likeness on his back. Who does that? So, give me your thoughts, Larry, since you've looked at this game inside and out for years and analyzed these players. Who is Shador Sanders? Is he even a starting quarterback on a winning team in the NFL?
He's interesting because he's athletic, but he's not fast. He's got good, at times you look at him and you say he's got good arm strength, but then other times some of his throws are a little lacking. He's got obviously a lot of self-confidence. He completed a really high percentage at Colorado, but a lot of that was underneath. And he didn't really drive the ball down the field much yesterday. What was his average per attempt was I guess he did. He's 6 yards, so he took some shots. But ultimately, I think he's a backup quarterback. I don't think he's a starting quarterback. And I thought, he should have gone in the mid rounds, and he did. So, I mean, Mel Kiper, I love you, Mel Kiper. Mel's one of my favorites, but you're comparing him to Joe Montana. I mean, maybe you should retire at this point. If you're comparing Shador Sanders to Joe Montana, I mean, maybe it's time to hang it up.
Krug, I said going into this segment that we talked about Sky Moore a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned how happy you were for him to get that 98-yard kickoff return to get things going in Arizona. I mean, coming in with that trade and the pick swap with the Chiefs that we found out about just before the season, if you drop the ball, that's something that's been a concern for Sky Moore. Now, on offense as a receiver, that's a drive killer. But on special teams, that's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Sky Moore has been anything but that and has just gotten better over the course of the season. Even early on, there were concerns with him fielding punts a little bit too deep inside your own 10, right? All of a sudden, he's been someone that you feel really good about having back there. What's changed with him?
Well, I think they've got a great coach. I think Brant Boyer's a really good coach. So we're seeing him. He's made, Sky Moore's still a young player, and he didn't do a lot of this in college because he was their star receiver in Kalamazoo, and they never used him on special teams. So this whole special teams thing is he's teaching himself at the NFL level how to be a contributor. But I think Boyer probably has had a big hand in it. It was only like 3 weeks ago where Sky Moore allowed a punt to land at the 13-yard line, 2 feet away from him, and it could have bounced off of him and ricocheted to the other team. And instead, it could have bounced to the one, and the Niners would have been up against it. Instead, he lucked out. It didn't hit him, and it bounced into the end zone, and it was just simply a touchback. But I guarantee you, Brant Boyer used that as a learning time for a lesson there. It's like, hey, we're either going to catch the ball at the 13 or we're going to get the heck away from it. We're not going to stand 2 feet next to it, and we're not going to let it hit at the 13 and just maybe drop at the 1. So there's learning to be involved here. But when I talked to the kid a couple weeks ago, and I said to him, man, I see it. I've watched the All-22. You're really close. I mean, you're close to busting one. And I said, I told him, I said, I want to credit you because there's so many guys who don't have the courage to take it up the field the way you do. And I go, you just bring it up the field full bore and you could get blown up. And then he looks at me and he goes, but I do sometimes get blown up. And I go, yeah, you do get blown up. But you know what? You're taking it up the field. And that's the only way to do that job. And I said to him, I go, man, you're close. Next game, 98 yards. And then this one, and he's just running out of gas, otherwise he would have had a couple house calls. But I love his approach, which is get up the field and show no fear.
Without a doubt. And the first thing is catching the football, as you noted, Greg, in gnarly conditions. So Sky does not bother him. He's able to secure the ball, and he does go. And, he's had some ones where we're backed up. Even Jim Nance got on him like, what are you doing on the second one? And Jim doesn't normally call him out like that. To me, yesterday's game, Kyle Shanahan just had such a idea. And he was, he was on Cleveland staff there before. So, he's coached some gnarly games on the shores of Lake Erie. When the 49ers won the toss and Kyle elected to take the football right away, he wants the wind. He wants the wind at his back in the first quarter. He wants the wind at his back in the fourth quarter. It was more impactful, obviously, early in the game than it was later in the game, and they kind of trucked him, Larry. But that's a coach appreciating special teams. If you're taking the wind, you're thinking special teams. You're thinking, I want the wind at my back for my quarterback's arm in certain situations. We'll get to Brock in a moment. But special teams, is there any unit in the NFL that is more improved from 1 year ago to this year? The Niners were dead last in special teams. I mean, historically awful. It cost them not only yardage in games that we had to look for, the hidden yardage, it cost them games. Blatantly cost them games. Minnesota, Rams game. I could go on and on and on. Seattle, the Jake Moody injury, all of it. It just never ended. Now they're among the powers in the NFL. And as you look at the offense with all these future Hall of Famers coming back now and Big Brain Brock, and the defense is just finding a way to do it, what does it mean to this football team that third element they can be not only good at, they can be dominant and actually win games with their special teams?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's about the confidence that Boyer has, and the Niners as an organization. This is an organizational accomplishment. This doesn't happen in just a meeting or a practice. This is an organizational commitment across the board. Look at what they did in free agency. Look at the guys they went after. Luke Gifford. Is Luke Gifford a great coverage linebacker? No. Is he a great scrimmage linebacker? No. He's a good special teamer. Luke Farrell's a good special teamer. Saran Neal was given $2.25 million to be a major core special teamer. He is. So they made the investment. I mean, Lynch and Shanahan didn't just, talk the talk over here and then do whatever the heck they wanted over there. They committed to the special teams throughout the draft process, throughout the paring down of the roster. And you're seeing the impact. And then the Sky Moore trade was genius. I mean, Sky Moore's got 10 and a quarter inch hands, by the way. He's got huge hands, 95th percentile as far as hand size. And you see him when the ball hits his mitts, he corrals it. Then you got obviously going from the kicker who couldn't make from 35 to Jake, from Jake Moody to Pinheiro, has been a huge part of their growth in that area as well. As far as where they're ranked, you're ranked only high in special teams if your kicker's getting the job done. Now they've got a kicker that's getting the job done. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Niners went into that game yesterday going, hey, we can win this game partially on special teams. And how many times have we said that at all during the Shanahan era? I mean, I think we haven't seen a special teams unit this good in San Francisco since Blake Costanzo, Brad Seeley, the professor, and in the Harbaugh years.
Yeah, hey, nice throwback there on some of those names. And I agree with you, Krug, but also what's great about this and Brant Boyer's unit is that it's not just the last 3 weeks that we've seen it. I mean, this has been a trend now for a couple of months where after the shaky special teams in week one and then moving on from Moody, you get Pinheiro. All of a sudden, some of the other miscues like we saw in Jacksonville, they've largely cleaned up as a unit. So, look, the 49ers still have a lot of work to do before we assess how we look back on the season. The NFC is so tight right now as we move into December that they could get the 1 seed. They could also miss the playoffs entirely. But as it stands right now, they are 9-4. They have had a lot of adversity and injuries to overcome. What's the last time you remember a coaching staff having this much success with a roster this decimated?
I would say Mike McCarthy and the Green Bay Packers team that had 22 guys on season-ending IR, and they still beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl. That's the one that comes to mind. I mean,
yeah, Super Bowl 45.
I mean, if you can reach Super Bowl Sunday with 20-plus guys on season-ending IR, I mean, that was a credit to Ted Thompson, I believe, who was the GM at the time. But, yeah, I mean, it's the Niners. I mean, look at the Niners right now on the defensive line. I mean, it's, I saw one of the Christmas specials on the Land of Misfit Toys. I thought of the Niners D-line. The Niners D-line is seriously cast-offs. Nobody wanted Huff. Nobody wanted Jordan Elliott. Nobody wanted Sam Aquinu. Nobody wanted Keon White. These guys are all here, and they're playing, and they're balling. And how about Cleve Farrell? Cleve Farrell said something to me that made me laugh when he was here the first time. I was talking to him about somebody who was good on offense. And he's like, you know what I've always said? And I go, no, what's your mantra? He's like, if you're afraid, get a dog. It made me laugh. But Cleve Farrell, I talked to him last week at his locker, and he's like, man, I'm here. I had places I could go. I'm here because I care about winning. And some guys show up for the girls, and some guys show up for the paycheck. When you can get a bunch of guys in that room who really are all about the W, you got something. And Clee, I knew it from that first practice. I thought, wow, man, Clee looks amazing in this practice. And he has, ever since he's shown up, he is playing. He had 9 tackles and 2 sacks yesterday. I mean, this guy was sitting on his couch a month ago, and now he's a key cog on a team that's got Super Bowl ambitions.
And he was the 4th overall pick in the draft by Mike Mayock when he was running the drafts for the Raiders, and 4.5 sacks that rookie year, and he just never was able to duplicate it. And honestly, I feel like the Niners in 2023 may have beaten Kansas City. Certainly had an easier path to Vegas in the Super Bowl had Cleve Farrell not hurt his knee in that last game of the year against the LA Rams. I remember talking to him in the parking lot, and I said, when are you coming back? And he said, I'm not. I'm like, whoa, how are we going to set the edge? And Chase Young just couldn't do it. But yesterday, Larry, he showed a little shoulder dip, a little get low around the edge to come out. And Shador's not fast, but he ran him down from the backside. In that year, they had other guys that could rush the quarterback. Chase Young would come in. Randy Gregory would come in with Nick when they went turbo, or as I call him, gold rush. I know he's going to set the edge. But there was a game not too long ago. He was a healthy scratch in Arizona, and I think it was Robert Beal who was up on game day over him. When you evaluate him, not just as an edge setter, which is valuable, but if you're going to play in the turbo, you better dip that shoulder and come around the edge and screaming out of the wide 9. What do you see from him as a pure pass rusher?
Clee? You talking about Clee?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that Mayock went with him with the 4th pick, now it was a terrible pick, but the reason he went with him was because he was an incredible high motor, high efficiency player who plays the run really well and is tough, and his coaches loved him. So Mayock was putting more credence into the intangibles, of which Farrell has a lot. He doesn't have, though, that 4.5 crazy, make you nervous kind of edge speed. But what happens is that, and Greg, you know this from being around the game as long as you have, the defensive line position is so much about technique. I mean, there's a Javon Curse that comes along every now and then who's so fast out of his stance that he could just literally beat guys off the edge. And we see that from time to time, spectacular edge guys. But really, you see Kevin Green and all these guys that lasted for a long time, Richard Dent. The Niners used to have them all. Chris Dolman, Tim Harris, they all finished with the Niners. Why? Because you get smarter as you go as a defensive lineman. Old defensive linemen have technique. They understand motor. They understand how to, when to play hard, how to play smart. And I just think that he's got a whole bag of tricks that he didn't have necessarily at Clemson, and he didn't have with the Raiders. But now he's got them. He's got a full bag of tricks. He's got moves. He's got counters to moves. He's got hand placement. He's got a game plan. He's got a first series game plan. He's got a second series game plan. I mean, he's a much, much smarter football player, and I don't think you can undersell that.
Krug, before I let you go, my last note for you has nothing to do with the 49ers, but just watching some of the highlights from yesterday's games up here in the studio. You remember we did the show together back the day after the Micah Parsons trade was made to Green Bay, and we went through the full list of who game wreckers were, just bona fide, unequivocal game wreckers in the NFL, and we were both very adamant that the Broncos' Nick Bonito was on that list. Yes. Man, what an awesome play he made last night. By the way, taking 3 spots after Drake Jackson in 2022.
Ouch. Yeah, Benito's special. Heck, we saw it this summer. When the Niners and Broncos got together, it was like, oh my goodness, look at this guy. This guy's like single-handedly dominating these practices, and he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He was great at Oklahoma, and he's still great. I mean, Benito's a major talent, and Denver's coming, man. That was a nice little win for them. I know the Commanders, forced overtime and the whole thing, and it was just a 1-point win, but watch out for Denver. How about Hufanga in that game? He had 13 tackles, and like 10 of them were solo. I mean, Hufanga's just playing absolutely incredible ball right now.
He made a bad PI at the end of the game when he didn't need to do that, climbing up a receiver's back when Marcus Mariota made an incredible play. And Benito, we know how good of a player. It'd be helpful if you actually block him on a play like that and don't let him come in untouched. He's going to tip the ball away, and they're going to find out a way to get that two-pointer denied. Denver is right now the number 1 seed in the AFC. New England's going to play tonight with a chance to jump to 11-2. But, the AFC, to me, is so wide open as I could ever remember. Any one of these teams, if you get in the playoffs in the AFC, you could go to Levi's in February and win the conference. In the NFC, we thought the Rams were unbeatable. And then yesterday happened in Charlotte, and they were beatable. Chicago, what they were able to do on Thanksgiving Day at the Link. 2 backs go for over 100 yards and run for 255. It's unbelievable. And then what the Niners are doing. We've had you on a couple of times after the Bosa injury, and I asked you, can the Niners win? Can they win their division? Can they win their conference? Can they win the Super Bowl in their stadium? Then we asked you that when Fred Warner got hurt. And we thought they can win, but can they win it all? I don't know how they're doing it on defense other than Robert Saleh is just amazing, and there's a culture, and it really is next man up, even though it's not next paycheck up. And then you got big brain Brock, and the special teams are one of the best units we have in the NFL right now. So right now they're a 7 seed. They could be a 1 seed all the way, just 2 home wins to play the Super Bowl in your home stadium. What a story that would be. So let me ask you again. This first day of December, right after Thanksgiving, had a lot to be thankful for. They finally hit their bye. Can the Niners win, Larry? Can they win their division? Can they win their conference? Can they win the Super Bowl in their home stadium in February?
Yes, yes, and yes. There's no question. First of all, this is one of the NFL's best coaching staffs, and that cannot be undersold. Shanahan is having one of the best years of his career. Brant Boyer's the best special teams coach the Niners have had since Brad Seeley. Robert Saleh is a better coach this second time around than he was the first time around because of the experience he had in New York. So, yes. And then the guy that we don't ever talk about is Gus Bradley. And Gus Bradley was the creator of the Legion of Boom. And, you talk to a Jair Brown, you talk to a Renardo Green, you talk to any of these young DBs, and you mention Gus Bradley to them, and they're like, oh, yeah, man, he's an OG, and he's helped me here, and he's helped me there, and he's very positive, and he may be the next defensive coordinator of the 49ers if Robert Saleh gets a head coaching job, and I expect that he probably will. But I think this is a phenomenal coaching staff. Johnny Holland, look at how many Niner linebackers have stepped into the fray and are ready to play. Kasarik is a phenomenal coach. Daniel Bullocks, I think, is a young coach, but I think he's got a future in the NFL. So this is a great coaching staff. That's first and foremost. They got 2 quarterbacks that can process, who are accurate, that they feel like they can win with, and they've proven they can win with. They've got maybe the best running back going in CMC. You've got some guys there who are really, there's a hunger to George Kittle. These guys have gotten close, man, and they've felt the pain. The Niners are being driven by the pain of losing to the Chiefs. Trent has talked about it. Kittle's talked about it. The leaders in that room understand they've gotten close. And, we've seen this a couple times in sports where sometimes you get close with your best team, you don't get it done, but then you win it a couple years later with a team that might have been lesser. Heck, were the 81 Dodgers as good as the 76 and 77 Dodgers? Probably not. Probably no. But they won the World Series over the Yankees in 81. So sometimes things fall together. And right now, I'll tell you right now, if you told me that Super Bowl Sunday was the 7-seeded Niners against the 7-seeded Buffalo Bills, I wouldn't think anything. I wouldn't think anything of it. I'd be like, yeah. How many years have we said the lowest seeded team in the playoffs could both reach the Super Bowl, and we could easily picture it? So a lot of years you could picture it, but it'd be a stretch. That's not a stretch. Niners, Bills at Levi's, we could see it. I know that would be a great moment for you, Greg.
I was going to say, if it's the Papa Bowl, a 7 seed on 7 seed, then at that point, it's nothing other than just pure fate. Krug, we always talk to you on Mondays. We love it very much. But I got to ask you, what are your plans for the bye week? I never thought we would get to this point here. We're entering December. Yeah, 49ers haven't had a weekend off this whole time.
What am I going to do during the bye week?
Yeah,
Or
you know,
when-
you
well,
don't
during-
have practice to go to. You're not going to be
Yeah.
doing the live Krug videos. I got to know what's on the schedule.
Well, we got a lot on the schedule. First of all, I'm going to be doing a Krug Show YouTube channel meet and greet at Pig and a Pickle on Sunday. So I'll be at Pig and a Pickle. You're all invited. Stop by, say hello. We're just an open house. We're just going to watch some ball and eat some barbecue and hang out. So we'll be heading Corte Madera on Sunday. But then this week with Niners Nightly, since we are in the bye week, we're going to take a couple shows and look ahead to the draft. The great Matt Miller, the NFL draft analyst, is going to join us this week for one of our Niners Nightlies. And also hoping to catch up with Ryan Fowler from the Draft Network and just kind of peek ahead at the off season during the bye week, especially since it's so late in the year. So we'll do a couple shows like that this week.
Nice. I like it. All right. I'll make sure to tune in then as part of my little evening plans. Always good catching up with you, my friend. And enjoy the time off, but it's not really time off. I guess enjoy the time off from driving up and down to Santa Clara would probably be the better way to put it.
No days off. No days off. There you go, guys. Have a great Monday,
Man, you
man.
love
Always
it.
a pleasure to jump on with you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Krug.
you, Krug.